No. Hello. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Very glad you all stayed. This is the last panel of a very exciting week. There has been a lot of content. We go back to digitalization of freight, and we want to look a bit at what really happened in terms of digital transformation. We're talking about it since a very long time. It's now probably the fifth year that we're talking in this third wave of digitalization. If we look at it as waves, the first one was probably at the 90s towards the 2000 when the first internet companies came and also tried to digitalize freight. We later had a second round when companies like Intra and like CargoSmart were established, and we had a further round of digitalization which started in 2014, 2015, and this is the one that we are still in. Some things probably have moved a lot slower than we would have thought, and we want to see a bit what was really delivered, what is there, and what is coming, and what's the time frame that we're looking at for the future. Before I introduce you the panelists, a quick background for myself and that you know who is here. My name is Ruben. I'm running a network for ocean freight focused logistics companies, many of which are NVOCCs and others that are trying to reinvent the game. We're bringing people together in order to innovate the space a bit and to be a bit a place of ideas and also a bit of a think tank for the industry. We have 127 members in 80 countries today, and if you want to learn more about the network, just feel free to reach out to me after the presentations. We also issued a book lately together with 30 experts of the industry on the transformation, on what is happening from different angles. I'm looking more at the forwarding side of things, a highly recommended read. So, let's go to the panelists that we have today. I will give everybody the brief opportunity to introduce themselves and what they're doing. We are very lucky today. We have a few guys that are very at the forefront of technology. We have Dr. Igor Jakomin, the head of co-CEO of CargoX, which are digitalizing the bill of lading and a lot of other document flows. We have Marcin Zarzecki from Quotiss in Poland. We have Julien Chapus from Okargo in France, and we have Tobias Pisall from our member AURIGA, which is a very innovative freight forwarder. So we have different perspectives on the subject that we're talking about, and I'll give everybody a chance to quickly introduce themselves. Igor, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm coming from the company CargoX. It's a company, as Ruben said, involved in the blockchain development. We started 2018 with a mission to digitalize the bill of lading. We started with to develop it on a blockchain, public blockchain, concrete Ethereum network, which was and it is still the biggest public blockchain network in the world. In the years of development, we switch a little bit out of the bill of lading to other segments as well, but later on, something about that. When we started the idea, of course, we were aware that it will be difficult to succeed with the carriers, so we presented and start speaking, presenting, and convincing also the NVOCCs, where we have some of them on board right now. But in the meantime, as I said, we switched to other things, which I will just show briefly in the next slide. What was the biggest problem in our 4 years of development? It was the approval of the P&I clubs. You have to know that more than 90% of the cargo which is going up and down the globe is anyway insured by the P&I clubs, and without their approval it's not possible to have any kind of discussion with the carriers about the bill of lading. We started this project in 2019 after let's say, a big debate with one of the biggest NVOCCs in the world. And we finally succeeded a year and a half after that. I can say that we are very proud of that. We are one of the 7 countries in the world have the approval of the international group of P&I clubs. As well, we are right now in discussion with the biggest groups of banking associations like Contour, like Marco Polo and China Systems. So in very short time, we will get the approval of all 3 groups of banking association. What we are doing right now we are servicing as a service provider the Egyptian government in the field of advanced cargo information. So from the 1st of October on, you are obliged to use our platform for present all the needed document for an import to Egypt. We are speaking about the invoice, we are speaking about draft bill of lading, certificate of origin, packing list, and other certificates. That's the beginning where we started also collaborate with the governments. We are offering, or we are now in pilot phase, but it will be very soon also a possibility not just for exporters, but also for the freight forwarders. And last but not least, we are also right now involved in the proof of concept with FIATA, with the International Forwarding Association, and we are one of the 7 digital providers for their bill of lading. That's for the short beginning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Igor. I would like to introduce Marcin. Can you tell us a bit about your background and the background of Quotiss, please?
Hello, it's Marcin. I worked for 12 years for Maersk Line in Poland, Belgium, Russia, and even Kenya. Mostly I liked it, but what I hated was quoting and the pricing part. And this is the background why we started Quotiss 4 years ago. And Quotiss is the tool for the freight forwarders to manage tariffs and to do the quotations to the clients. We are a young company. We have clients in Poland where we started, but also in Singapore, China. Just this week we signed up someone in Chile. It's growing fine, but then we'll talk about challenges in getting really, really bigger later on, I believe.
Okay, thank you very much. Julien, please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about Okargo.
Yes. Hello, I'm Julien. I worked for MSC, so the ocean carrier, and a bit like Marcin, I saw how complicated it was to communicate the rates. That's how I decided to create Okargo. And at Okargo, we help freight forwarders who are struggling to gather all their ocean rates from the rate sheets and as well from the websites now, who started a couple of years ago. We help them to visualize all their ocean offers in one single screen so that they can quote and book faster with always the best fitting offer.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you're already here now. We already have multiple people which were frustrated on the carrier side and wanted to digitalize the industry. That's where we're starting, which is a very good point. We come back to carriers later and the complexities that we have with them. Tobias, please tell us a bit about AURIGA and your background.
Thank you, Ruben. Yeah, AURIGA is a very small forwarder focused mainly on customer needs. So customer came to us and have a problem, and we try to arrange or just build up a solution for them. So I think it's nearly the normal way a forwarder has to act, but we say it's customer focusing. So we build also solutions around the transports. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, I would like to start the discussion a bit with really looking a bit at these 5 years of this third wave of digitalization and where do we actually stand. I mean, we have been talking about certain things since a long time. We can maybe start on the documentation side, where we've been talking about paperless processes, like e-bill of ladings, all kinds of things which are not old. It's subjects that we're talking since 5 to 15 to 20 years, and we are still talking talking about them. So maybe we kick off with Igor, whose background is more on the document side and trying to get them into the digital world. What were the difficulties? Why are we still not where we thought we could be so fast?
If we are looking to the bill of lading as this document, I think that the first initiative started 25 years approximately, but the biggest challenge was all the time the trust. So the trust towards physical, towards the digital. That was the biggest challenge, which is still alive, because still a lot of people don't believe to the technology that is 100% secure. That was the reason that we decided, one of the reasons why we decided to go to the blockchain is the security and transparency. Also, we from our experience, we said we need a technology which will be neutral. So that was another reason why we went for the public blockchain, and that's are all the, let's say, the elements why the digital world is still not 100% with us in the business today. If you are asking where we are, where we are, and where we will be, 25 years of development, I think that in 5 years it will be much more than it was done in the last 25.
Okay.
But, there is always a but, if all the stakeholders will not be connected together, if they will not speak the same language, then it will be another 250 years, not 25.
You just took all this hope away that you gave us just now. Okay, but I think we already hear out of your thoughts as well that the challenge in transformation is more about people than it is about technology, because a lot of the technologies are available since a long time. Huh? I don't know, maybe Marcin, tell us how you see it. What has happened? I mean, Quotiss is now 5-6 years old.
No, nearly 5.
Yeah, nearly 5. So you exactly started when this wave started, and.
But I extremely agree with Igor that if there is no common language between all the stakeholders, then that digitalization will take 250 or more years. And talking from my perspective, like the quoting and rate management tool, I mean, like we can do whatever. But then if CMA and Maersk start the spot quoting tool, but they have completely different standards or the business case, let's say, then it's difficult to digitize even this, what's going on right now. And recently what we had a challenge with Maersk Spot. Like, okay, the first carrier who announced Maersk Spot, like API and so on, fine, we can connect it. But then the Gdansk port stopped working. You cannot get rates to Gdansk from Gdansk. Why not? Because Maersk decided to use internal RKST codes, whatever it is, not law codes, and then, you know, the whole engine couldn't work. And then within one company, we have inconsistency. But then if you compare it to the CMA, different approach, different structure of the rates, different split of origin, ocean, and destination charges. And again, even though there's DSA committee and then talking for a couple of years, still lack of standards is something that should be standardized from the very beginning. And actually, like if this starts with the carriers, then it's carried on later on for the freight forwarders, who also need own standards and so on and so on. So I think the biggest sin of our industry, of the carriers starting with then the freight forwarders, even our companies, is that there's lack of standards, and this is the key. And this is the reason why there is no real standardization.
Okay, a lack of standards, but maybe also in some cases a case of wrong standards. Huh? I mean, if we come to UN log codes, I mean, there is one for Shanghai, but there is 4 ports in up to 100-kilometer distances, and you can't land your drone on a UN log code. Huh? And if we look a bit towards the future, huh? But maybe Julien, can you elaborate a bit? How is the connectivity with carriers? I mean, that's of course essential. How many carriers do have an API today for rates?
Yeah. I would like to bring some optimism as well
I like that part. Thank you.
At this stage, because in the last 5 years, as you mentioned, the big change in the ocean industry, I am specialized in ocean industry, is that online quotes started, and it did not exist in the past. So that's like a big bang in the ocean transport. So that the good news are we have online rates. The bad news, you're right, Marcin, is that we do not have standardized codes and codification, but this may come in the future. To answer your questions, in terms of connectivity, you have today's two ways of communicating the rates online, the API or the website. Most of the carriers decided to start with a website. So with the website today you have Maersk, MSC, CMA, Costco, One or Oni, depending on how you want to call it. Well, most of them, Evergreen, Zim, I think
websites almost everybody has
almost
now,
everybody, but not everybody. Yangming, I would say, does not have, for example. So it's not everybody in the top 10 carriers, but almost everybody. Regarding APIs, today's Maersk, CMA, and Evergreen have an API, and the other carriers do not have an API. And what is interesting is that they do not say they will have. It's like could be a strategy not to have an API, which is quite interesting in our world, in our industry, where APIs, you mentioned connectivity, should be the future, should be the rule, and it's not even announced. So
I mean, it's cutting in very well with what we discussed here yesterday when we had also a digitalization panel. We were talking a bit about this difference between business to business and business to consumer. And a lot of the developments in our industry have come from this business to consumer image, where there needs to be an interface for the customer where the customer deals with, which then is a website or an online form or an online portal or whatever, which a human has to deal with. I always say in a business to business world, we don't need an interface like that because actually you already have a system. And maybe this is something where I can bring Tobias in because the guys at AURIGA made a very interesting analysis a bit of how their world has changed and what their IT infrastructure looks like with how many different systems they have to deal with. Because if you actually end up having to self-serve from certain of your service providers now, you every time need to enter another person's web portal. And as Julien elaborated, you have carriers where you need to log in to get your rate, where you have to log in to do your bill of lading instructions. And then if you work with 4 carriers, you have 4 logins. Maybe, Tobias, you can tell us a bit about the daily fights and struggles that are there thanks to digitalization and self-service.
The problem is, we have some systems, they communicate with each other, but the most systems are, they are not connected. There are single source systems, and we have to see in our daily work, do we need it? Or do we need it not? But mostly when we just book at the carrier, at an intermodal operator, whatever, they force us to use their tools, their platforms. And the problem is to link these 2 tools is not so easy as it seems. So we have to do the most work manually, doubled, 4th times. So if we can reduce this number you see on the slide, this number of platforms and tools, and combine it into one tool or one tool which has the plug-in points, so it would be much more efficient. So I think we can spend 40% of our daily work.
So we're in a very cumbersome kind of situation now where there is a lot of solutions, but they are very fragmented, and bringing the picture together, forming one big image out of this is still hard. Maybe I want to come back a bit to these standards and to this kind of common language that you were mentioning earlier. I mean, there are standards. There is maybe even too many. There is organizations like GS1 which do standards for retail in the supply chain. There is UNCTAD that is doing standards since many years that do the UN log codes. There is organizations like EDI3.org and others that try to really build common standards for things. It feels a bit like it's about picking one instead of actually waiting for one, because we have quite a lot. where do you see that going? I mean, we're in year number 3 of the Digital Container Shipping Association. We have quite a few people around, and I mean, you guys digitalized the bill of lading. There is only that many different fields in a bill of lading. It's not rocket science, right? We talk about actually something simple where probably the human being is again in the center of the problem. Maybe Igor can start with that.
Yeah, you're correct. There are a lot of institutions and associations trying to do this, some kind of, let's say, common language in the shipping world. If I'm looking from the perspective where we are involved, there is a lot of initiatives also for the common blockchain system. As if I made a comparison with our competitors, I said 7 companies in the world right now have the approval from P&I clubs. 2 are not on the blockchain. 2 are on the private blockchain, and 3 of us, 2 are on public, and 1 is on a hybrid. So between something in between public and private. So how can we, let's say, discuss together that someone who issuing the bill of lading is sending through CargoX platform to the consignee, and the consignee is not using CargoX but is using one of the competitors? Impossible. Mm-hmm. So definitely in the blockchain world there is a need for this so-called interoperability, where the different blockchains will be able to speak the same language, perfectly speak the same language, not just accepting few data or few things, but perfectly speaking, perfect match. That is, from my point of view, ideal solution. Okay. When it will come, it's very difficult, because there are initiatives. Maybe the most advanced in this sense is the World Economic Forum, mm-hmm. where they made a lot of efforts, prepared a lot of initiatives, but we are still let's say, we all just started. It's a lot things to do. It's a long way to achieve.
Okay, let's make the picture a bit smaller and focus on these carriers, okay? Where let's take rate data, because we have 2 rate engines here, and we have Tobias struggling with quotations every day and comparing and listing and whatever. Okay, so carriers all have different standards in sending this information. In a normal world, standards come from 2 sides. Either a market leader is defining it, or is more or less everybody follows that market leader, or authorities or whatever issue some kind of a standard. In our industry, somehow everybody seems to wait. There was Intra as an initiative, there is DCSA as an initiative, but maybe what Igor just said about interoperability, there is also some people that are not keen on having that interoperability. We see that in the IoT sector, for example, because if people have a good solution, they don't want to be interoperable with their competitor. They want the customer to pick theirs, and I don't know, maybe I would very much like to hear your views on that. Julien and Marcin, maybe start with Julien, please.
Okay. Personally, in the ocean world of containers, I do not see on the short term a rule coming from, you say, a market leader or some association, because you have 10 major carriers. They work very independently. Well, maybe sometimes they agree, but their focus is, especially now, to have the vessel, the capacity. They are focused on the long term, is to fit the market and be focused on their core business, which is having ships and full ships. And this question of digitalization, even of the whole and standards, I think when I talk to them is really, it will come when they will be forced to, and there is no authority in this world, because they are very international. So okay. They are not governed by a region or by a... Yeah.
But then, Marcin, now it's your role to try to give us some hope, because that was more the pessimistic side of it. There is no hope. We're back to the 250 years that we will transition to a digital world. The guys in air freight have managed that some time back because they had it a bit easier, probably with their rating structure and everything. But tell us a bit your view.
Yeah, the air freight and the LCL business is quite already standardized in terms of the rates and the way the rates are presented towards freight forwarders, and how freight forwarders present the rates to their customers. But in the ocean part for FCLs, there are carriers to blame who have different standards, but there are forwarders to blame who want to receive the rates in certain standards or formats, and then there are customers to blame. One lady wants to see all local charges grouped, one another wants to have split, one wants to have all in, one in this currency and other currency. So like all parties a little bit to blame. But I still think that the carriers have the responsibility and the power to introduce the standards, because then the rest will have to follow. Like they are the biggest, there are only 10. There are 50,000 freight forwarders and probably 5 million or more shippers and consignees. So I cross fingers still, even though I am skeptical about this standardization initiative, but I think it's the only way to make it really right.
But what do we do in the meantime? In the meantime, everybody is translating for themselves. You have your standard probably in-house where you translate to, and then you give it out in the standard of that what your customer wants. So we're translating around quite a lot of data points, and it's actually how many different data points are there? It's not that many in our industry.
Like Quotiss stands for, KISS principle, keep it simple and stupid, and Quotiss is quoted simple stupid, or quoted short and simple. And our big bet was to simplify the tariffs from the carrier side. Okay, they are too big to talk to us, but from the forwarders side. And our still offer in the market is to simplify, like just get rid of all little, half euros and 10 cents here and there. Just make it simpler and easier. On global picture, it works. It makes sense. Data proves that you will not lose money. You will gain probably money. Make it easier, but still, there's so many exceptions about everyone. Okay. Special rates for shoes, special rates for toys, special rates for this small little port in China.
Okay. Igor, you had something to inject, please.
There is a hope, or there is a light at the end of the tunnel. At least when we are speaking about the bill of ladings, there is this DCSA, which is an association where all the biggest container carriers are together at the same table discussing about the standard of digitalizing the documents in the container business. And what is really give me an optimism even further is that also other organizations which are not connected to the containerized business are already came as a member to this association, and there was, let's say, some kind of unofficial announcement that also some other organization on a global scale will adopt the standards which will be agreed upon the group. Now is the question just when they will be so successful that they will shake hands and say this standard is the real one.
Okay, but that's always a question of hope a bit. I mean, I like it has a more positive note now, and it's Friday afternoon, so that's a good thing. But the question is also with DCSA now in year 3, changed the logo 3 times, but I haven't seen much else coming out, that is really adding value, because the standards are already there. I don't know. Julien, you wanted to add something to this.
The logo is very important.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to bring some positive trend in the world of the ocean carriers once more, which is my specialty. We have to remember that in the past, ocean carriers were only ship owners, and you had many agents. So the pricing was very different even in each country, and it is still the same. For example, in CMA, CGM, it took some time because each country was different. So now it's sometimes the carrier are owning their own agent, the big carriers. But still is, we have a very positive news is the fact that the carrier, they moved to rate sheets, which were produced locally and differently all over the world, to websites, and internally they are starting to swipe out, to clean all that, because in the website is one website, so they are harmonizing their own internal language. And progressively, we can assume that they will be at least harmonized each carrier. So instead of having hundreds of different rate sheets and rates, you will have 10 major pricing. And this would be a major step. And the next step, as you mentioned, would be to have one, of course, language, the same language. So there is a trend of harmonization thanks to these online rates systems.
So once it's already digital, in a bad form digital, it's at least already digital and it can be moved from there. I think that's also a subject where we can bring in Tobias again, which is when we look at how paper has disappeared more or less. I mean, AURIGA is also already operating fully paperless anyway. And but despite that, there is still a very high fragmentation of data. Can you maybe share a bit on that, on these clusters?
When we see the end-to-end solution we provide, so we have to pick up, we have to pack, we have to stuff, etc. So we have to combine many parts together, and each of the parts we purchase has its own platform, or we have our own solution for this. So the digital market for platforms, for ordering platforms, whatever, is so fragmented that we would need this fragmentation I've seen. You have seen at this slide. So there is no solution which gives us an end-to-end solution or a line, a data line, where I can just combine 2 or 3 tools together and have end-to-end all information I need, my customer needs, the end customer needs. So there is no connection between the many parties which are involved into the complete supply chain or transportation chain.
And then you have all these manual steps in between where, excuse the language, but where we as meat bots then work with different kinds of systems in between, and we self-service each other like it's in the consumer world, where if you look at banking also, we more or less do the work of the banking clerk, and things have maybe been digitalized, but they have not become more efficient. We had a discussion this morning where we said in the past, the booking, you call your customer calls you, and there's a competent customer and a competent service provider, and the booking takes 20 seconds, despite being polite and everything, and now somebody has to put in a 40 information data points form. So that's not really getting us there. But maybe, Igor, on the custom side, there can something happen. I mean, you mentioned the ACI initiative that you're doing in Egypt and others. And I mean, customs is something that happens in every country. We have the World Customs Organization. We have certain of the G7, G20 countries very keen on actually standardizing these data points, at least. Is there some hope that we can say we will at some stage reach this vision of cargo getting export customs cleared at the moment, when it's also getting import customs cleared right away, or so, that this difficulty is disappearing?
Yeah, we are involved in a very small segment of the custom procedures. So this advanced cargo information, and you have to know that right now just 7 countries in the world adopted this and is in use in the world. First of all, I think that from 7 up to 200 and some, it's a long way to get this adoption. It will come much faster than it was from now, because the first advanced cargo information initiative started already in 1995, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah, almost 30 years ago, 26. And from that point till today, just 7 countries have this adopted. Even though this is a recommendation from the World Customs Organization. But it's going, now we see that there is some movement in the world, especially Middle East, Africa, some initiatives in Latin America. The problem, sorry, not being so positive, is that again every country accepting their own technology. United States, classical database, Egypt first in the world on the blockchain, and there is a big fight in between. I think that the same it will be here, that it will come very quick to adoption of this certain part of the custom process, but that it will take much more time to standardize it on the same level, unless there will be, I don't know, the World Custom Organization saying, use this technology, but you know that that's
every country cooks their own.
Of course,
soup, yeah,
it's impossible.
Okay, but I mean, if we maybe draw this a bit wider and say, okay, there is a lot of the technology solution, a lot of the digitalization in our industry was always somehow focused on efficiency. You know? We had a solution to the problem already, and now we try to increase the efficiency with technology. There's the other thing we could do would be to add to differentiation, which we don't see that much happening. The only differentiation maybe happened in the communication way, because we communicate via websites now with our customer instead of by phone or fax or letter or whatever. So in that sense, where do you see the role of technology? Is there still something where digitalization can also help to really change the game and not just look on the efficiency side of things? I mean, maybe we start with Tobias on the other end.
I think we can use the technology to take over data from point A to B to C, and use this information for my purpose. So the customer sends me his details, his supplier sends the details, and I can take over and take out the, for me, important information. So we can digitize a complete supply chain. I think.
But, I mean, in the end, does the customer care? The customer wants A to B, certain time, certain cost, and if there's a problem, you tell me. I mean, the customer himself is very simple, right? His requirement has not changed that much.
But if we can have, if you see, if something goes perfectly, so nobody cares, so everything is fine. But if you have an escalation, any problem, etc., then it has to pop up. You need to have the management by escalation. Also, at customer side, best example is the truck. Truck comes too late. Normally, the technology can give us the prediction when the truck comes to the customer, to his warehouse, to the docking tool, whatever, and everything is clear.
But it doesn't happen because it's optimized for itself. The trucker is on his Google Maps, the warehouse is in his planning system, everybody is in their little silo IT.
And this is the problem, this is the fragmentation, so we need one red line into the, through the systems to get all information at the right place.
Okay. How do we get to that red line, Julien?
Well, yesterday I booked my holiday to Sicilia.
Okay.
Okay, I booked the flights to Palermo, the flight back from Catania, the car. I booked a car for 15 days. I did that in 2 hours. I could compare all the markets instantly at 10 o'clock in the evening. This is not possible in freight forwarding today, or very little, I mean, compared to... Yeah. So I think that the big added value, because you are talking about the added value, is to have live, full market, and this is what we can reach, and we are working, I think, all of us to bring bricks to help you at the end. I have the freight forwarder to give an online offers on all original destinations. So that's, for me, the big target, and that's a big change in value for the customer, because before, if you remember, if you want to book a flight without these kind of platforms, you have to call or you have to go on different websites to check, so it's a big change. Now, that's from the value for the customer, I want to focus as well on the carriers and the ocean offers. Yeah. There is the digitalization allowed spot rates. Merck spot is possible because of digitalization. With the rate sheets, you cannot send the rate sheets every minute.
Absolutely.
So it's a good example of, from the offer side, a major chain to give the best price with capacity, so the best offer, real offer at one moment on the ocean market.
But maybe there are also some hindrances where people actually don't want a certain kind of digitalization to happen. I mean, if you look at the carriers, there are probably some that try to make it a bit more difficult or that not want to see this acceleration of rates because they see this as a rate to the bottom. I don't know, Marcin, you have we had that discussion before that there are some carriers that even think it might be a business model to charge for faster access to rates, right?
Yes, that's the point, and like your comparison to booking holidays in Sicily is nice, but it's B2C, strictly. You are the person who wants to go for holidays, right? And yesterday was discussion also during your first panel that B2B still, we believe, I think, it's different, and it will never be so smoothly just to book a container like that.
Yeah, but across silos, it's also in B2C not easy. I mean, you probably book your flight, your hotel, and your rental car on different websites, huh?
Yeah,
because there is no, some of them try to do that, but it's also not yet working. You have a better one for this and a better one for that. So.
But I think what we, in the freight industry, we don't need more technology, we need more sensibility and simplicity. And this is the main message. I don't think we don't need any more tools, or Cargos or Quotiss, whatever. We need standards. Then we can really connect various parties. Otherwise, we can, do something a little bit faster, a little bit better, a little bit nicer with nicer interface, but still will be silo. Like let's say Quotiss. I know I'm just very tiny part of your process, but if I want to be, the main part, then I have to integrate with 10 carriers with their various formats. Then I need to integrate with 50 TMS. In Germany or in Switzerland, in Sweden or in China, right? So it's impossible for the company of any company to do it really nicely for all the input and outputs. Not possible.
But it's also, I mean, maybe this is a good point to come to that also to say that look at, for example, visibility at the moment when we look at data, okay? Visibility, very hot subject. We all know there's a lot of money going into companies that only focus on providing visibility solution. Huh? So you have more data where things are and whatsoever, and you have to then filter through that data where is actually a problem. Huh? Because if I have a beautiful dashboard that shows me my 702 shipments, this is nice to look at, but I'm actually caring about those 5 that have an issue. And then I take this data, and then there is an analysis cycle, then there is a decision cycle, and then there is an action. And how can digitalization also help to maybe spin these 4 steps in a bit of more automated way instead of really saying, hey, we focus on showing a lot of data, but it does not really, does it always add value or not?
Definitely it will help because the final aim is, as all of the panelists said and Marcin said a few times, simplicity. Because if at the end, in the entire supply chain, we would like to have a positive effect, then it's neat what we already started from the same standard or language, but also to change the processes, because in a lot of times there is the word digitalization, but is not the right definition. If we would like to digitalize, not to digitize, then we have to change the processes behind, and mean that the user and the customer at the end will have benefits through speed, to reduction of data, reduction of information, reduction of cost, and everything else. But there is a way, there is a possibility to do it, but it's still a lot of effort needs to be done in getting this simplicity, as Marcin said.
Yeah, but then we are having some questions from the audience also. Maybe we bring that in. The first one here is on IoT. Will IoT take part of future shipments? I mean, of course, we all know there is a lot of devices providers. I think you also provide a service at AURIGA, Tobias. So what do you see is the role of IoT? I think it's a question for you, probably.
I think IoT is, the customers are not ready yet. So some huge customers has their IoT systems as Nestle, etc., for prediction, production prediction, etc. But in the normal standard transportation sector, I see it's IoT will be only a part of a security thing. Security thing for our internal use. I have to say, IoT helps us to know more about our shipments. Also, the simple example is a trucker is not at the loading place, so what I have to do, I have to phone to the trucker and say, hey, where's my truck? And the trucker came back 1 hour later, etc. This whole chain is too long, too inefficient. If I have the IoT, I can see, okay, the truck is on the way, maybe some special data with it, so that I know he's coming into 10 minutes, so I'm sure I have no escalation. So I think this will IoT help in the actual time.
Yeah. Anyone else with some thoughts on IoT and on its role? I think Tobias already provided a good overview on it. I mean, it's where we stand now. It's also for certain commodities where it's probably playing a more important role than for others, for certain transport routes. But also there, interoperability remains an issue. On ships with IoT devices, still the same problem. Every ship has its own kind of satellite standard, its own kind of connectivity. So once you're out of 5G, 3G, 4G range, you get very limited data. So I think this is something where also standards are still an issue, and I think that's the next question from Francis about do we need a standard for data exchange? I think we can all say yes to that. That's relatively easy, but how can it look like? I mean, who does define it? Brings us quickly back to this DCSA discussion or to customs or whoever it's going to be. Who will have the holy grail and what will it look like? What do you think? Where will that solution come from? If we don't want to wait 250 years, I mean, we don't know.
We don't know. What DCSA?
We hope. Okay, we hope. We keep hoping. Really. Good. I hope somebody from DCSA is watching this later and will get to work.
I think at the moment, I am not very deep into the DCSA, but I think at the moment there is no work regarding pricing.
No,
in the DCSA. So there is nothing on pricing.
So
so that's a field even to start before finding a standard.
Yes, but I don't know. We have two people doing rate management here on the table. Do you synchronize your rate standard for managing? You figured it out, and you figured it out. So each finds their own solution. So do you need a standard for yourself? Probably not. You would like to have the people that supply you with rates to deliver them in a standardized way, right? But maybe one thing that can help is if those, take one example, carriers now adopt certain systems. If we look at, you mentioned Jakomin earlier, they I think are also going to BlueX. So you have several carriers that use the same service provider to manage their rates in-house. So it should come out at the end of the line in a very much similar format, right? Can that support maybe a bit?
Yes, Evergreen and Jakomin decided to go with the same supplier, so it will be the same format of data. For example, I guess they will use the UN law code. We have a standard, you mentioned it, Marcin, the UN law code. So if progressively the carriers, the ocean carriers, they use this kind of solution like BlueX, and you have only 2-3 solutions on the market, I guess they will reach a standard. I have to say that if you have only not, the problem today is that you have hundreds, you have no standard, you have 100 possibilities. If you have 2-3 possibilities on the whole world, I think we can manage it. The issue is that it's as many standards as you have players on the market.
Okay. So maybe in towards closing the round, I would just like everybody to say a bit what you think how does the future look? We now have these 5 years what has happened there, and we had 2 to 5 to 250 years for things to move forward. What do you think will happen? I mean, we had this opportunity, I think in digitalization, this pandemic was an opportunity, no question. A lot of people got a lot more aware about how important data is, how important communication tools are, and so on. So I think it supercharged digitalization in many ways. And so what do you see, where is it going?
Definitely a very fast development in the next years in comparison with the last 10, 20 years. That's one thing, but we already mentioned the interoperability which is needed. Then, of course, when we are speaking about digitalization, not speaking about documents anymore, but speaking about data. So exchanging of data, structured document. No, I'm again speaking out of our case, where using our system, you can upload the documents on. Doesn't matter if are produced in a different program or different software, then you can upload the entire document. But in very near future, there will be transferring of data. So structured document, extracting of data and sending just several data, the needed data to the next in the chain. Mm-hmm. That will be very soon. And after that, also transparency and recognition of such data that are right, that are not false, that are original, and all those things in one not document, but in one envelope, in one bunch, send it to the other, and that this trust will be 100%. Because at the beginning I said one of the problems of the digitalization in the past was trust. Mm-hmm. Why not using digital ways of exchanging documents? Now data is the trust. And that's where I see the need for the future development.
Okay. Marcin, what do you think for the future a bit of the of digitalization in our industry? It seems like if I hear Igor, it's very much still a people problem rather than a technology problem. It's trust, and it's the confidence in the tools in order to actually share and to also come to something. I mean, we have a question here from one of the online users. Shipping Pope is a very good name. Transparency in the supply chain, is there simply a lack of will? Is it maybe really a lack of willing that some people don't want? The tools are there, the technology is there, there's even some suggestion of how the standard should look like, but is it just a will? Is it like a lightning connector that doesn't want to become USB, or what is it?
No, I don't think it's only lack of will, maybe lack of awareness. Sometimes lack of will. I know cases that the carriers were, hiding something just to make more money, but I don't think it's the major issue here. Still is a lack of standard. I don't want to repeat myself, but I do believe it's the major thing. Lack of standard, lack of sensibility, and then everyone wants to, do things differently. And like talking about the visibility of physical things, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I spent one day in a seminar in Gdańsk, like 2 hours discussion with the guy from NASA, like very senior and experienced guy. We were talking about getting the containers really visible, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not good in this technical stuff, but like he said, he doesn't believe in any way in the nearest future that containers will communicate live ever, simply. We're on the ships, right? So we still rely on the ships and the ship's devices, not the containers themselves. So still, like this kind of data we'll never get.
But it also, I mean, the question is, what value does it add? if it's the same in the parcel business. You have a small package that's on a pallet, the pallet is in a container, you track the container, you know where the parcel is. You know, I mean, it's, if I have 20,000 containers on a ship, all communicating their location, it doesn't add value if I have the location of the ship already today, and if I know whether it was loaded, right?
Something funny, I know it doesn't happen often, and statistically it doesn't matter, but we had a term in Maersk, interplanetary shipments. So, for example, there were containers who left planet Earth and never arrived on planet Earth, according to systems.
Okay.
And then you have IoT, then well,
yeah, then you can still
you
find
can see where it is.
We'll see. Okay, Julien, what would you say? What is happening next? What will be the next 2 years like? They will be much faster than before. That's hopefully on the positive note. But apart from the standards, what will happen?
Yeah. Again, I will go to my expertise, which is ocean container transport. Is going to be fast because now started this online rates, so it will finish. I mean, all the carriers will move to the online rates, so that's a big change. And I hope, and I see in this short-term future, this possibility I mentioned that data is coming from carriers to the forwarder to the shipper instant pricing of pricing part instantaneously, so the exporter can see instantaneously all the possible offers to ship his container from point A to point B, I hope, in the 2 coming years.
Okay. Okay. I mean, Tobias, that's probably, the carriers don't like to talk to the customers anymore at the moment anyway, because it's a bit a stressed relationship, I guess. Everybody has their issues on freight. So these digital communications will become more, and maybe there will be a standard. But what do you see? I mean, you also look at a lot of different systems, you work with a lot of different systems. What is...
So in this case, I totally agree with Igor. We have to build trust with this technology. Because the technology will moving forward, so we cannot stop it. So, but we need to have the trust to take the technology for our needs and for the standards, etc. To have a plan, have a direct plan, one plan, not 10 plans, one plan to get a good system in this supply chain, transportation sector. Where we have so many splitted parties. I think the people has to open the mind for it a little bit more.
Yeah, but it's very fragmented, huh? So it starts with one and the other speaking to each other, huh? And finally having live events again like this, where people see each other, look each other in the face, and can develop a little bit of trust, huh? So. Yeah, I think that's also a good closing for our discussion. I would like to thank the panelists here very much. Of course, also the audience for your attention. It's the last panel of the event this time, and I think it was nice to come together again. It was, for me, yesterday already was the first panel in almost 2 years, and the first real-life discussion where you don't speak to your own screen. And I think that helps a lot in solving problems and in looking at things from different angles. Huh? So I would like to thank everybody. Thank you very much.